The White Sox have been playing great baseball. 11-4 in their last stretch of games. They've been playing their best baseball of the year. Manager aside, what's been the biggest difference for this team in their hot stretch?
Again, back to the offense. I mean, they had a blip yesterday against Kyle Freeland, who's a pretty good pitcher and has pitched well against them before. But otherwise, they've hit the ball. They've hit the ball consistently. Look at Moncada. He's had, a 4-hit game and a 5-hit game out of his last 6. And he's got like a 215 average for the year. He's been very much, down production wise. Grandal homer today. He's had a rough season overall. So they're getting production from guys. They expected production. Their frontline guys are coming back along with the other guys who have had pretty good years who are already hitting. So I think it's just the offensive consistency has picked up, and the pitching has been pretty good all year long. Their defense is not great. They have the highest amount of errors in the American League. That hasn't changed a ton, but they're hitting the ball, and they're hitting as we see the video there of Eloy going deep. They're hitting the long ball much more. They're hitting home runs, and that's changing games for them a lot quicker.
One of the keys to the offensive production lately has been Eloy Jimenez,
Yes.
who is in the last month hitting .337 and OPS north of 1,000, 7 homers. He's been a huge part of this lineup. What can we expect from him and this team throughout the last few games of the season? Will we see him DHing more and more, or how are they planning on going about keeping Eloy Jimenez going and in the lineup?
Well, it's interesting because back a few years ago when they had Fan Fest before the pandemic, unfortunately, a group of us were interviewing him about being a DH, and he basically, without getting too graphic, said, "Hell no, I do not want to DH. I want to play the field." And he told us the other day he still doesn't love it, but this is what he's got to do. Because of the injuries he's had to his legs and everything else, this is the spot he's in, and I think he's kind of understanding it a little more. And he is, swinging at strikes. He's not chasing out of the zone. And he's been the guy that they thought he was going to be, and they've had in spurts, and they've had, in a full season early on. And that's, the kind of presence, the 40 home run presence over the course of the year you can have. So again, he does not want to DH. He does not want to be the DH going forward. He may not have a say in that ultimately, but for the rest of the year, I would say he's going to be the designated hitter, and he's done well in that spot right now.
A big part to the offense that isn't out there right now, Tim Anderson, out
Right.
with his finger injury and hasn't played in a little while now. Where is he at in his process? Can we expect him back in the lineup at any point?
Yeah, he was cleared Tuesday to do more baseball activity. We were watching him take ground balls today. I think he's taken some dry swings. Rick Hahn and Miguel Cairo both said this week that the key thing is going to be when he starts swinging, how he feels when that happens. And Rick said he's not putting a timetable to return, although there's, not much of a table left to look at. There's 18 games after today, but he said he could be back at some point next week. He didn't know if it was going to require a minor league rehab assignment with Charlotte, or they could just do it, up at the big league level, which a lot of times they've done a couple times, I should say, this year. So yeah, I mean, he could come back next week, and that would be an interesting situation because Elvis Andrus has been a godsend for this team since he's joined them from Oakland.
So over on the pitching side of things, Lance Lynn has been virtually unhittable of late. He has been fantastic. Also a friend of the pod. So when people think Flippin Bats, they think Scott Merkin and Lance Lynn. That's what they remember. So Lance Lynn's turnaround this year, he was great last year. And the beginning of this year, not so much. What's been behind this turnaround that has gotten him back to being his unhittable self?
Well, he had the injury in spring training at the very end and had surgery. And I think the beginning part when he struggled, it was just kind of like his extended spring. It took him a little bit of time to find everything. He's, Lance doesn't say a lot, but he can turn a phrase pretty well. And he said, getting your butt kicked teaches you don't want to get your butt kicked. I'm paraphrasing pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of learned what he had to do, or not learned, but figured out what he had to do moving forward. And I think he's got a 2.13 ERA now over his last 11 starts. And he's going to face Cleveland again next week in that big series, which could really decide the season for both teams. So yeah, he's been back to the form they saw for, if not all of last season, at least, the first half and then some last season.
This one's pretty simple for you. How fun has it been to watch Dylan Cease pitch this year?
Yeah, Dylan's great. I have to admit, I think, everyone, it was a Saturday night game against the Twins. The game was long over. They were up 13-0. And it came to the ninth inning. And I think we're all like, this will be cool to cover a no-hitter. This is going to be cool to see it. And then, of course, the 1-1 pitch. And Luis Arias, who's leading the American League in hitting right now, the pitch before fouled one off his foot. So maybe he was sandbagging a little bit there. He was kind of limping around. And the next pitch, he lined into center field. And I wrote this in my newsletter and have had some interesting responses. But with the game 13-0, I don't know if this takes the edge away or it's not hard competition, but I would have thought of intentionally walking him at that point, and that's no offense.
I'm with you.
That's no offense to anyone else in that lineup, but they had already taken Correa out of the game. I believe they had taken Kepler out of the game. So the best chance you have against Cease is Arias. Now, again, if it's 1-0 or 4-0 or 6-0, you go after him, of course. But at 13-0 with 2 outs in the ninth, either I'm, intentionally walking or throwing 4 pitches way away from the zone. But credit to Dylan Cease. He wanted to go after him. He wanted to finish it off with a flourish against the best hitter on the team and, the highest average in the American League, and it just didn't work out. But he's been phenomenal. Interesting guy, too. Really fun guy to talk to. Has a lot of various interests outside of baseball, which is fun to explore, but has really taken – he's already was pitching like an ace, even though for some reason he wasn't an all-star. But now he's kind of taken it up to the next level. You've seen him kind of hit into a second gear during the second part of this season.
Thanks for watching. If you love Flippin Bats, swinging 3-0, or just talking ball, join us. Call us at 213-537-9339 with your questions. We have a weekly guest, and we have a lot of fun, so hit that subscribe button.